there are things that are a lot better to helping you drop fat. It sounds like to me, the premise of Whole30 is to utilize whole foods to help people have adequate micronutrient intake so that they can be healthier.
Yeah.
A byproduct of that is some weight lost, but it is not a very direct, deliberate, methodical way for you to change the way your body actually works. And Mark, I was about to pull up the live to ask to see the questions, and as I open my phone, I see a message. Did you adopt an adult border collie from years ago?
Did you?
No, I never owned a dog. So
Same.
anyway,
well, I guess like I own one through transparency because she had a dog, but that's not mine.
It's not your dog.
It's not my dog.
It's not your dog, bruh.
No.
Bruh.
Luna.
No,
she didn't come. See.
Yo, Mark.
Yeah.
What's the topic of the day today?
Why fad diets work for the short term, but pretty much why they're also unsustainable.
What's a fad diet?
I would define a fad diet as a diet that cuts out big major food groups and attempts to lose as much weight as fast as possible. Typically like in a 30-day or 60-day type of like cycle. Would you agree with that?
No.
No?
I think a fad diet is a dietary pattern that is trending purely based on some principle. I actually think that a lot of times there's a moral or ethical principle behind it, with the byproduct being weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when like advocates of it try and sell it, it's sold using weight loss. Because like, let's think about this here, right? Like, veganism has been around forever, but like it gained popularity and became a fad diet when it was a group of people with a certain moral compass, right? Whether you want to say it's right, wrong, that's irrelevant, but they had this moral compass, and then they say, hey, let's try and sell it to all these people and say it helps lose weight, right? I almost think that there was like a counter movement by the carnivores.
Yeah.
Right? Where they were like, and then they tried to use confirmation bias to show that actually you can lose weight on a carnivore diet, but really it was a bunch of bros being like, I like meat because I'm masculine.
And I'll eat a bunch of meat every day.
Right? And then you have the opposite side. Well, I'm aligned with the universe, and so I'm only going to eat plants.
Yeah, you had two polar opposites when it came to that. You had people doing it generally for health, and then people doing it for a moral, ethical reason because they care about animals and such.
Right, but like these things became fads for very specific, ambiguous reasons, and there was confirmation bias that was occurred to justify all of its benefits, right? Instead of objectively adapting it. So that's my definition of a fad: something that's become what do you call it? Adopted during a period of time.
Yeah,
right?
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
What are some of the fad diets that come to mind when you think of one immediately?
Keto.
Yeah, that's what comes to the front of mind, especially someone that worked in the supplement industry and fitness industry as long as you have. We remember when Atkins was a thing. And so when I saw keto roll out again, I was like, this is just like that almost, but more science-based now. Now we're using more fats and less protein to enter a state of ketosis. But that was the first thing that came to my mind was, another unsustainable diet for the long term.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like keto more than Atkins, obviously, because keto, you're using ketones, right? Whereas Atkins, you're not. You know what really bothers me now is when people are doing Atkins and saying they're in keto.
Yeah.
They're so adamant on the fact that they're in keto, even if you explain to them what gluconeogenesis is. And they're just like, no, it's still keto, right? And you know what's even worse is I saw a fitness or nutrition expert try and debunk gluconeogenesis as a concept in order to make all of the people that said that you're not in keto when you're eating high protein be stupid, because they were such heavy keto advocates and such heavy low carb advocates. It's just like, yo, like,
no. So the first thing that whenever I hear something like that, I always ask people, what do you think happens to your body when you run out of glycogen, since that's our number one source of energy?
Right. They think, oh, we'll just go to ketones.
No, it's not how we regulate our body heat. That's not how what keeps our heart in rhythm. None of that. Our body has to make glucose or glycogen from somewhere.
Right. Your body wants to use glucose. And then the funnier thing with keto is like there's these few studies, like 2 or 3 studies that are saying that when someone's in ketosis, that they actually can go through protein synthesis at an equivalent rate as when somebody is eating protein and carbs, particularly carbs. I'm like, okay, no, first of all, that's not true. Even if there's a few studies, there's at least hundreds, I could say, of studies that disprove that. And then they find this one study. There was, I think, one, maybe 2 studies that said that actually, if you are in ketosis, you can go through protein synthesis faster than if you're eating carbs and protein. I'm like, dude, that's 2 studies. Like, whatever. So keto is a fad diet, we've established. What are some more fad diets?
I have to say, I have to throw paleo in there. I remember when paleo became a big thing, and I understood the concept of it, trying to eat foods and select food groups that our ancestors ate. But I think that was something that obviously it came and went to some type of extent. But I also think it was a big fad diet that came out of nowhere, because I can't ever see the justification of cutting out sweet potatoes, for example. It's
right.
A healthy complex carb. Why am I just negating this whole food source just because my ancestors 10,000 years ago did not have access to sweet potatoes?
Right. Absolutely. For sure. See, paleo is just, in my opinion, even though it is technically a fad diet, I would look at it more like an eating pattern.
Yeah.
You know, I think I call it like a fad eating pattern, just like intermittent fasting is like a fad eating pattern. Right? Then it comes down to like the question, like what actually defines a diet? Like what is a diet?
I guess that's what it comes down to, because then you could think of testing of keto as an eating pattern, because I'm eating in a pattern that just negates carbs. Like carbs are just not a part of my life anymore. I'm just eating all around that.
Gotcha. So then I guess any eating pattern is a diet, right? Because like, okay, when you ask somebody the question, how is your diet?
Yeah.
You're asking them really like, how is your nutritional habits and practices on a day-to-day basis consistently over time?
Yeah. I think it's just we're just so conditioned to refer to programs designed that, I guess, eliminate certain foods and make you focus on certain foods as a diet. Because I think just that's how we've been conditioned to do like commercials and advertisements that look at this new diet, lose 10 pounds in 30 days with this new diet.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a great segue into what we're talking about today. Why do fad diets only work in the short term? Right? Yeah. I think that what would be the productive way for us to go about this, and guys, our coach's banter is really just off the cuff, so we don't organize anything. But Mark, I think the best way to actually do this is to go from diet to diet and actually debunk why each one creates only short-term results. But start by saying the overall idea of why it causes short-term results. So this is what I'll say. Nutrition should be something that you think about every day for the rest of your life. Okay. And anyone who feels miserable about it or negative towards it, I would like to invite them to think that they are thinking about it in the wrong way. Now, the reason why a fad diet, just in its nature, is very short-term and in its nature, is because it implies that after 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or whatever period of time, that you could go back to being a slob.
Yeah.
That's the implication.
It really is. And I think that's, and also they're so restrictive for certain food groups for certain specific reasons that it's not like eating a balanced diet when I can indulge on this certain food every few weeks or in moderation. I'm eliminating a whole entire food group in some cases that now that I can't have it at all, I want even more. And those create big binging and purging habits as well.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So great. So let's talk about keto then. Let's start with keto. Why is keto only a short-term fix?
So I won't say the only. I'm saying for 99% of the population, it's a short-term fix because I've met people that have been like a year keto strong. I'm just like, I don't know how you do it, but by all means, more power to you. But
well, hold up. I want to talk about that. They're still not serving themselves best. In fact, they're.
I'm not saying they are by any means. I'm saying they found a way to make it sustainable. So I can't mock that one aspect. I'm not saying it's great for anything because realistically, eliminating a whole entire food group that is essential for energy production, I would never find beneficial long term.
But I would also like to say, I'm sorry, even for that 1% of people that's still doing keto and maintaining the weight loss, no one ever got ripped on keto.
Yeah, no.
So you can't really get like super shredded or even like a good amount lean where you can see lines in your abs with keto.
Yeah.
They give me that one asshole that comments below, and I'm just going to rip him apart later because then it would be like your definition of lean and our definition of lean is just completely whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the benefits.
Right.
I love keto from the perspective as that it helps a lot of people hit a protein number. A lot of people we found when they enter our program are not eating enough protein when it comes to the diet. So I like the aspect is that you can't eat over a certain amount, but you should be eating it within this range, which I typically approve of those ranges. So getting enough protein, I would say, is a big plus from that diet. Also, those that have really high fasting blood glucose levels, that's something it can definitely help you with. Stabilize those levels, get them lower, especially if you're waking up and you're in like the 120, 130 range. You're already pre-diabetic. So cutting the carbs down to a very minimum, like the 20 or 30 grams you're allowed to maintain ketosis, I think is very beneficial.
Yeah, reduce blood sugar, right? Increased insulin sensitivity, obviously goes along with that. One huge benefit, reduce inflammation, especially if done in the short term. I think that's huge. Improve cognitive function.
Definitely that.
In the short term, when you're on keto and you're using ketones, it's a very clean source of energy for your brain. It's just overall very healthy for your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that either using keto.
I will say an initial weight drop, and we'll talk about why that happens in a moment.
Right, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that I love cyclic keto, right? Like using keto with a more balanced diet, or even using keto for a period of time, and then having a little bit more of a higher carbohydrate diet during a certain period. And I like using keto for people who have a really, really high, they have high insulin resistance coming into a program, and using keto for like a month or so.
Yeah, I get that.
Beforehand or a couple weeks even beforehand, just to get that blood sugar down, and then going into a more balanced approach. So I, by no means do any like Mark or I hate any fad diet. We don't hate any eating pattern. We just look at it objectively and see how we can apply it from person to person. The problem is when one person thinks that they should be using it all the time and that all people should be using it all the time. But keto does have some benefits like we named right there.
Exactly. And again, touching on, I guess, the weight loss part of it, why I guess there's so much people gravitating towards this diet is there's always an initial weight drop that happens when you cut out all carbs. And the biggest weight drop that comes from is depleting your glycogen storage. As you know from making weight for a fight, or I know making weight for a weight class, glycogen weighs a lot. I think the average 200-pound male holds between 5 and 10 pounds of glycogen. So that's a huge number to drop off the scale just from eliminating a food source. Granted, your body fat percentage number is not going to get any lower.
Right.
You may lose a certain amount of inch off the waist because you're holding a little less water affiliated with the lack of glycogen in your body.
Right.
But the initial huge weight drop you're getting is not because you lost any fat.
Right.
And your tank's empty.
Right, exactly. And guys, for those who don't know, glycogen is the storage form of carbohydrates. It gets stored in your liver and your muscle cells particularly, right? Yep. And so glycogen also carries water with it. So one, you're losing the glycogen. Two, you're losing the water, okay? And that's where the scale is going to go down initially. But once you run out of any glycogen to lose, if you're in keto, the only other reason why you would continue to lose weight from that point is if you're in a caloric deficit from your maintenance calories, right? But the problem with this caloric deficit here is that because you need glycogen and amino acids to build muscle, right? When you take all of the carbohydrates out, and when you're only using ketones, you can't really maintain or build any muscle mass. When you can't maintain or build any muscle mass, your metabolism slows down, because we all know the most effective way to speed your metabolism up is to build lean muscle tissue. Keto doesn't allow that. How you don't. So then you're going to get that skinny, fat, stringy look. And yeah, it's going to suck.
And I'm not even talking about how crappy the muscle pumps are when you're actually training when you're on keto. I can never get into a workout whenever I'm doing a keto period just for that. The lack of water and blood flow to the muscles when I train.
No strength. You get no pop. You get no like pizzazz in your muscles, you know?
No, not at all.
We like pizzazz. Not pizza, but pizzazz.
Pizzazz.
Plus, on keto, you can't eat pizza. So fuck that. Just saying.
Yeah. And like, not to go too far into it from a scientific perspective, but the most anabolic hormone in the whole entire human body is insulin. And right. You see a lot of people, especially strength athletes or just athletes in general, eat a lot of carbohydrates around their workout for that specific reason to fuel that activity and to help with recovery after they work out as well. And you're missing that whole entire benefit of spiking insulin during those peak times when you're doing keto. There's no other hormone in the body that's even close from an anabolic perspective as insulin.
This is not to be argued. I've had people insulin is the most anabolic hormone.
Simple. Hands down.
Hands are down. This is a glass desk. I don't want to slam too hard.
No, don't do that.
So, yep. Awesome. So once again, guys, just to recap, there are a few benefits of keto. One is increased insulin sensitivity, decreased insulin resistance, right? And blood sugar drops. What do we say? Initial weight drop, if you want to call that. Good source of energy for your brain. Supports, adequate protein consumption habits. Reduces inflammation. And a lot of people, like I said, feel good in terms of their cognitive clarity, just overall sense of well-being on keto. So those are kind of the major benefits associated with it. But with that said, you're only going to get a short-term weight loss. You will not get a long-term weight loss result. And really, in the long term, it could be detrimental, destructive for you. So our conclusion, Mark, is we should use it cyclically. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that. Or if you're battling with certain issues like high blood sugar levels, maybe again use it through different cycles until you can find a healthy rhythm and develop better eating habits.
Yeah, and like if you have if you have sugar addiction or something like that, which that is a real disease, like any other kind of addiction is a real disease. You can use keto for a little bit longer. Our guy Vincent, he's lost over 200 pounds now. He used keto for over a year and a half, and then we brought some carbohydrates in, 50, 70 grams a day on weight training days. So it's totally possible for someone to do it for a long period of time, but most generally healthy people shouldn't do it. Let's move on. Next, fad diet. So I don't even know what is Whole30. I don't care when somebody brings it up to me. I'm like, I don't want to hear about it. What is that?
So I love the concept behind it, but I hate the execution and the foods that are cut out from it.
Okay.
So the Whole30 diet is a meal concept that you should eat whole real foods, which me and you totally agree with.
Yeah.
Avoid processed junk, which is the big concept behind it.
Love it.
Also in the Whole30 program, no processed sugar, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with the processed sugar.
Okay.
No grains, which I did not understand at all. No legumes either.
Legume. Say that one more time.
Legumes.
Take you out. Legume.
And also no dairy. So you're cutting out, like, I am okay with no dairy from an inflammation perspective. I'm not a big fan of dairy to begin with, but it's not neither here nor there. But I'm totally on board with you eating whole foods because that's what me and you preach all day.
Right.
But I'm never gonna be like, you know what? Especially from a culture perspective, you eat lots of legumes. I'm not going to take them out of your diet because they're going to make you fat, which me and you both know they're not going to make you fat. They're not going to mess with your meal plan. They're not going to cause anything negative to happen from a body composition perspective. So
there's a lot worse things.
Exactly. There's a million worse things. There's lots of things that I can probably find in that program, like eating tons of raw honey or dried fruit and stuff like that. That's more detrimental from a body composition perspective.
Well, okay, and this is the whole thing, right? This is the whole thing. this is going to be a little bit of a complex point that I'm trying to make. So just stay with me here, right? Is that there's something called dimensionality here, right? Like where it's just like, it's not 0 or 1. It's on a scale of 1 to 5, right? So even if something helps you lose weight, okay, even if something can help you drop some fat, there are things that are a lot better to helping you drop fat. It sounds like to me, the premise of Whole30 is to utilize whole foods to help people have adequate micronutrient intake so that they can be healthier.
Yeah.
A byproduct of that is some weight lost, but it is not a very direct, deliberate, methodical way for you to change the way your body actually looks. I love how I'm trying to explain Whole30, and I just heard of it really with the makeup of his right now. But is that accurate? Does that seem like that's what the intention of it is?
That's the best way to do it. And that's why I like the concept behind it, but I just can't get my brain behind eliminating certain food groups for no apparent reason. So like you know as much as I do, I hate processed foods. I try to eliminate them from your diet and anyone else's diet as much as possible.
Right.
So like I'm on board from that perspective of Whole30.
Right.
I just, those certain foods I don't feel like you have to cut out for any specific reason, because like you know as well as I do, like Ezekiel bread is not going to harm you in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Unless you have a specific like intolerance or sensitivity to Ezekiel bread, right? Yeah. You know, I think even in my opinion, I think the whole anti-grain paradigm is kind of blech to me. Like I feel like in moderation, used appropriately, timed appropriately, considering insulin levels, all of those things, grains can be very productive. Not saying they necessarily always are, but they can be very productive.
Yeah. Like, for example, especially like more complex sources like an Ezekiel, some type of sprouted bread.
Right.
Like, I guess the big takeaways from the Whole30 that I'm in favor of is developing really healthy eating patterns, getting away from processed foods.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's the biggest victory out of that whole entire diet. The next thing is eliminating processed sugar. I feel like we find so many people that hit the carb intake just from beverages alone, that eliminating processed sugar directly gets rid of any beverage you may have that contains calories pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So then I guess like as per related to the topic of this video, the reason Whole30 will work in the short term for some people is because they're eliminating processed sugars. And so obviously one is the overall health benefits, right? When you're healthier, your body's going to let go of fat, at least a little bit of it, right? Especially if you're coming from being super unhealthy, cortisol levels are jacked up, blood sugar is jacked up, you're going to lose a little bit of weight initially, but there's no actual deliberate mechanism in Whole30 that will cause someone to lose weight. And if they do lose weight, then it's probably because they're in a caloric deficit.
Yep.
Right? Is that fair to say?
Again, I guess the other awesome point of it, again, is developing those better eating patterns. But the reason why I think it's obviously unsustainable is that you're cutting out a lot of food groups. And I can't see many people long-term following that process.
Right.
There's a reason why me and you preach having a balanced diet, because when you become too restrictive from a diet perspective, you have people who really go off the rails more often and go on these binges. And then they feel guilty about these binges and they can't forgive themselves.
So what do they do to make themselves feel better?
Do it again.
They eat more. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then they stop. They purge for a few days because they feel guilty, do extra cardio, or they don't check in with us, or they kind of feel guilty. And
it was funny because I was speaking to our boy Minhas yesterday, and he said to me, he's like, yo, like, how many of your clients lie to you? I'm like, bro, first of all, how many clients of ours lie to us has nothing to do with you and your plan. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you want to know the honest answer, I'm going to have to guess about 80% of our clients lie to us about 10 to 20% of the time, meaning that like you'll have one of the most truthful clients and they'll probably tell us 90% of the truth. Right. But I'm not justifying or advocating it, but it happens, but that shouldn't be relevant. But then what he was like, because he's like, listen, like there have been times where like I've gone over every single day a little bit. And then on the last day, I completely try and compensate and eat nothing. Right. And that's right. And that's what I'm like, and you can't do that. Here's the thing. And this is what I said to him. I was like, I'm the king of not hitting my diet, as you know. But the one thing is, Mark, is that when I got that sheet of paper, right, especially starting last week and really getting to it, like I would rather someone be consistent on something for 7 years, 4 to 5 days a week, than someone perfect for 6 weeks and then screw up for another 3 weeks. Did I lose you?
I lost you. Yeah, I'm back.
What I said was I would rather somebody be perfect. I'd rather someone hit it about 4 to 5 days a week for 7 years straight than hit it perfectly for 6 weeks straight and then screw up for 3 weeks straight. Now, I'm not saying be a weekend warrior either. Don't have 5 days perfect and then go crazy. But like what I'm saying is that like if you get it 80% right on Saturday, 70% right on Sunday, and then 85 to 95% right the rest of the days over a long period of time, you're fine.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that. What is it? Perfect's the enemy of great?
Yes, perfect is the enemy of good, right? And that's the issue with fad diets too, is that they're so restrictive and force you to be so perfect with these rules that when you're done, it's a free for all. It's kind of like after a show, you just want to eat everything in sight, including your hand and the plate that your food's on, you know?
Yeah.
So, next diet. What's the next fad diet?
I was going to say the carnivore diet.
The carnivore diet. Yeah.
Pretty much the counter diet of being full on vegan.
I feel as though that was a counter movement, but I just don't actually know enough about the origination of it.
The biggest reason that I ran across it so much was I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. And I'm always listening to his podcast, and it's a diet that he openly promotes all the time. And the big concept behind it is I'm eating an extremely large amount of protein throughout the day. I'm getting tons of saturated fat from these animal sources. I'm minimalizing the grain that I'm eating and getting most of my nutrients from vegetables. It's in the essence in line with almost a keto-based diet, but just the protein is astronomical. And they're relying on the principles that I'm eating all this protein, I'm eating all this saturated fat from animal sources, that therefore it should be great for my hormone levels, as great for my performance as well. And you know as well as I do, if I got all my carbohydrates mostly from vegetables, how well I perform.
I'm sorry, bro. Wait a second. Hold on. The whole premise is cutting carbs out, right? And
processed grains. So like it's almost in line with like a paleo. So like I can eat like spinach and I can eat carrots, but I can't have a waffle.
Okay, but it's so high in protein.
Yeah. Every single meal you're having, like, for example, like 4 to 6 ounces of a protein source with minimal amount of other macronutrients. You're getting all your calories from fat and protein.
Doesn't leucine cause a really like dramatic insulin spike, insulin response?
It does, but it's typically when you get leucine from another source, not from a protein, not from an animal source. When you get that from like your amino acid, because you're getting that from typically animal hair. When I worked over at Nutrex, we sourced our amino acids from animal hair.
Gotcha. So that's why. So it's not the leucine necessarily; it's the source of the leucine.
Yeah, and I believe they also showed that using fermented vegetables as your BCAA source, you get less of an insulin spike from that as well.
Gotcha.
Like from getting your amino acids from hair cause the biggest insulin spike.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So it's actually eating that much protein won't actually cause as much of an insulin spike as I once believed.
Yeah, but realistically, how well would you perform as a fighter if most of your calories came from animal fat and animal meat?
Is the answer not that well?
I assume you wouldn't be able to roll on the mat as long if you didn't have a ton of glycogen.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any carbs. Also, I feel like my stomach would hurt like crazy.
Yeah, imagine how heavy you would feel all day.
You'd just feel super bloaty.
Yeah,
and it would be hard to completely digest. No, I personally truly believe, this is from experience and working with so many people, that at the end of the day, for any kind of athletic performance, carbohydrates are the best source.
100%.
You know. So the answer is terrible.
Like every long distance athlete did like pasta parties the day before.
Right.
Like you don't see athletes doing keto to run a marathon, or besides making weight for wrestling, it's the only time I ever really see that happen. After they make weight, they eat everything under the sun.
There is this really stupid company, this competitor, HVMN. Fuck HVMN. I hate them. Sorry, guys. In San Francisco, there's like biohacking company, and they're giving their cyclists and endurance athletes these ketone esters, right? And doing these long fasts. And it's like, okay, listen, like, look, for overall health, it's fine. But like for real high performance, right? And I love how it's guys who aren't actually athletes trying to teach about real high performance. And they're saying that it's actually the ketones will help them with ultra marathon running, long distance running. It's like, dude, no.
I understand that fat is a long lasting fuel source.
Right.
I understand the concept of it. But if you're doing ultra marathons and you're depleting glycogen at the level they're depleting glycogen, you are definitely going to need something to keep you going.
Right.
You're not seeing anyone on these like little pit stops they have doing ultra marathons sipping like ghee. Like they're not throwing ghee back. No. Like, right? No. Or scraping coconut or avocado in their mouth. No. They're having goo or like some type of like dextrose mixed with a protein or something.
Right. Absolutely. So I think we got it right. Next, fad diet. Is intermittent fasting a fad diet?
I would like to say it is, just because the way it swept the nation.
Fair.
I can't even go on LinkedIn without seeing it nowadays. So.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you overall think about intermittent fasting?
I think from a fat loss perspective, a cognitive perspective, and getting people regimented into a diet, I think it's great.
Okay, I'd agree.
From a muscle building standpoint, I do not think it is optimal.
Okay.
And that's strictly because, you know as well as I do, if I shoved all my protein into a 6-hour window, I'd probably feel like crap.
Yeah.
And I can't digest all that protein in a sitting either and really get everything out of it.
Right.
But I think it is amazing for teaching people how to eat correctly and how to diet correctly and get the correct foods.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the average person who gets into working out or fitness or health isn't eating periodically throughout the day. Mm-hmm. They're either grazing a lot throughout the day, or they're eating one big meal in the morning, one big meal at night, or skipping breakfast, eating a lunch and a dinner. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier to make that person be like, hey, instead of you eating this for this meal and this for this meal, just switch those out, compared to change all the moving parts already in their day.
Yeah, no, I full-heartedly agree that having that eating pattern, right, where you know, whether it's a 12 to 8 or a 6-hour window you can eat, or even a 10-hour window you can eat, I think that, one, it creates that structure and regimentedness. Okay. Did I lose you again, Mark?
I can still see you and hear you.
Okay. Number 2 is, I think that using an intermittent fast to drop blood glucose levels in, you know, early in the morning, right? Like one of the things I noticed is, like, people will drink their morning coffee with sugar and they'll get that big insulin spike, and then the ghrelin is hunger hormone. That hormone will go up, and then they'll be on this like chase the whole day trying to like satisfy that hunger, right? Because then what do? They eat more sugars, right? They have that bagel, or they have something else in the morning, spikes the blood sugar even more, right? And then the ghrelin goes up, which is a hunger hormone, goes up even more. Leptin goes down, it's just a fullness hormone that goes down even more. And it just becomes this mess, this roller coaster. So I think it's good for that. On top of the fact that, isn't there, like, when insulin spikes, growth hormone is stopped?
So like, that's the other reason, and the concept. I don't know if you remember when we worked at Powerhouse together. There was Josh we worked with, Serrano, who was really big into it, from the aspect of, until you eat something or drink something that releases insulin, your growth hormone at the highest level it is the whole entire day. Yeah. And it'll keep roaring and stay up there until you eat or drink something that contains some type of sugar to spike blood sugar levels.
Right. So guys, there's this hormone called growth hormone, okay? And anytime you spike insulin, you're stopping the release of growth hormone. Growth hormone and insulin have an inverse relationship, right? And so growth hormone is responsible for a lot of different things, right? One of the things is that it helps burn fat and helps build muscle, right? And so by spiking your insulin, you stop the release of growth hormone. And that's why, especially in the morning, because growth hormone levels are highest from when you're sleeping, right? Sometimes not spiking your insulin is a good thing. The problem, here's the two problems I see with intermittent fasting, okay? Three. One is people just can't get enough calories in the day that they need if they're trying to actually build muscle, and building muscle really is going to be a long-term fat loss solution. Okay. The second thing is this. I oftentimes see high achievers work out in the morning. Yeah, I want to get it in the morning, right? Because I'm committed, right? And they don't have any carbohydrates or proteins or anything really for that matter in the morning. And the problem is, like, for you to fuel your workout, you need food. So that's a huge mistake. So if you're training in the morning, whether it's weight training or cardio, especially weight training, right? And cardio, if you do fasted, fine. Actually, that's probably good. But especially weight training. If you're weight training, you should not be intermittent fasting. Like, you should not be, right? That's the second issue. And then the third thing is I noticed, like, a lot of people have issues with their sleep when they do an intermittent fast, right? And like what I've been reading more and more is that, like, you need carbohydrates to make serotonin. That's why a lot of people get that, like, late night munchies, right? So that's another thing, is that, like, if you stop at 8 and you sleep by midnight, I don't know. I'm starting to actually be a proponent of eating a small, tiny portion of carbohydrates right before bed.
So there's actually a really cool study done with fruit and that. So as you know, as a competitor, almost every coach in the competitor land eliminates fruit from you when you're in prep.
Right.
And I understand the reason behind it, because fructose goes to the liver compared to going to skeletal muscle, how no more carbohydrates typically go. But they are showing that fructose, since it does go to the liver, actually can assist us with sleep, and your sleep will be less restful and you'll spend less time in REM sleep if your liver is depleted of glycogen.
There you go. You got to eat carbs then. Eat carbs before you go to bed. That's a joke. Don't do that. But fruit. Eating fruit before bed. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot.
You ever notice how crappy you sleep during prep?
I feel like that's also for other reasons too.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's maybe a minor factor. Then I may next time sneak some blueberries in. I don't know.
There you go. But we'll see. Yeah, well, that's why that makes sense, because I read a few things online that said eat bananas to help you go to sleep. Yeah. I always thought it was because of zinc and magnesium concentrations.
That could make sense to an extent, but like I know like blueberries don't really have much of either.
Got it. Interesting. Very interesting. Learn something new every day. How you doing?
Right.
What are you gonna do? Next fad diet.
Do you want to touch on veganism?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll talk about what I love about it. I love a lot of things about veganism, and you might not think me being a bodybuilder that I supported a lot of it, but I'm supporting, I think, most of the concepts behind veganism. So strong in favor of the beneficial side effects for your health and digestion standpoint, especially from a cardiovascular standpoint. I'm not saying eating animal meat is going to raise the cholesterol whatsoever. I'm going to saying a lot of dairy and other processed refined oils from dairy are not great for our cholesterol levels in any way, shape, or form. So from that standpoint, super in favor of. From a gastrointestinal standpoint, I'm super in favor of, because meat sits in your intestines a much longer period of time than plant-based proteins. So again, super in favor of that. Also, energy levels. People, when they switch from a meat-based diet to some form of veganism, always get a lot more energy throughout the day. Their body's spending less energy actually digesting and breaking their food, and you have more expendable energy to use throughout the day. And with my little stint I was pescatarian for a little bit last year, and for the 2 or 3 months I did that, I felt so much better from an energy perspective. Granted, my workouts were not as great, but I felt so much. I woke up like revitalized every single day. So those are 3 things I really love about veganism. How about you?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. I mean, listen, like I'm not, now that I'm on a different diet, I'm mostly vegetarian, not vegan, mostly vegetarian. So I would definitely have to attest to that. Like, performance is the only thing that really goes up when I start to introduce more meat. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. And then digestion is, for me, also the other huge thing. So I mean, I full-heartedly agree. There's not really much more for me to say. But that goes into exactly what I'm saying. I mean, athletic performance just completely declines when you're not eating meat. Like, that's just a fact.
So, like, fun story. So when I was in Florida, I was associate with Danny Reardon, who was 5th place in female physique for the Olympia. And right after she took 5th, she switched to veganism, and her workouts plummeted. She never qualified again for the Olympia. Ended up giving up on bodybuilding because her belief of veganism was so strong, which obviously if that's her moral compass, go towards that. That if it makes sense to you, do that.
Right.
But her performance stand dropped dramatically. Her body composition did not look the way she did when she ate meat, because the carb intake was obviously much, much higher to hit the protein goals that she needed. So from a performance standpoint and as an aesthetic standpoint, it was much harder for her to maintain that physique, and she couldn't actually hit the same physique that she had previously. So again, from an athletic standpoint, I don't think it's the best diet for that.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to figure out how to word the point I'm trying to make, but like, that's where you want to be really careful between your morals and values and the facts, and having a certain moral compass or a certain perception of the world, and then looking for facts to justify that stance is not an objective search for truth. So even though you may be able to defend your side or your stance with facts, there's such a thing as better. This may be good, but there's definitely better. Right. And when it comes to especially the highest levels of athletic performance, not that everybody watching this wants to be Mr. or Mrs. Olympia or a professional athlete or anything like that, but when you come to the highest levels, at that point you don't just want good, you want better, you want best. And that's where I think that there's so many better ways for you to go about hitting a very specific goal. And then than veganism. And that's where it's like, okay, someone will say, I have this goal, I want to be vegan. Okay. But it's like, okay, you have this specific goal here. Why are you so married to this process if this process here is so much better? Right. Then we figure out why the person's actually married to it. And if they say it's like has nothing to do with a moral compass, well then it's like, dude, then let's definitely like
why? It's why.
Right. If it does have to do, go ahead.
What I'm saying is, when you have that same mindset, like you just said, like there's no specific reason why they're bound to this process. You're almost trying to hit that goal with a hand tied behind your back to an extent.
Right.
You're limiting a lot of food choices that you have that will be more optimal for hitting those specific goals. More
productive to a very specific goal. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So beautiful. Mark, by the way, we didn't announce our client of the week, which is Lisa.
Yeah. Hey, Lisa.
Because she chose a show, which she's going to do next year. So congrats. Woo! 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 Awesome. Mark, I think we're approaching time because we got a meeting too after this.
Yeah, we do.
Yo, fam, I love you all. Sign up for coaching by Quantum Minds in the links below. Not my desk, but the links below this video. Do that. Likes, loves, hearts, questions. Reach out to Mark. Maybe you can message me. I might message you back. I love you all. Click the links below. You'll find some cool things there. And anyway, any more Fad Diets? Are we good?
I think we're good for now. We can always do another video about it.
I love it. Sweet. Fam. Peace. Mark, thank you. I love you.
Are you tired of trying to figure out how to lose weight and keep it off? And maybe you've tried every fad diet, worked with a trainer, did this program, that program, and you haven't gotten anywhere? Well, 1, I feel for you. And 2, the good news is I've worked with thousands of people over the course of the past decade in helping them speed up their metabolism so that they can lose weight, keep it off, and have a proven system they can take with themselves for the rest of their life. So what I want you to do is DM me the word metabolism, and someone on my team will reach out to you and schedule a call where you can come up with a custom plan for you, your life, your goals, and your schedule. All right, there's gonna be no selling on this call. All we're gonna do is we're gonna figure out all the factors that affect you, help you speed up your metabolism, and get you on the path. So whenever you're ready, DM me the word metabolism and we will reach out.